Pediatric Lounge, a podcast taking you behind the door of the physician's lounge to get a deeper insight into just what docs are talking about today. From the clinically profound to the wonderfully routine and everything in between. Well, hello, George. It's Tuesday morning, and we have a phenomenal guest, Dr. Wendy Hunter. Yeah, she's done so many things, I don't know where to start. But
what's her topic? Her topic is meeting families where they are at.
Well, okay. Well, I'll start with what I like. Dr. Hunter is an avid drum player. So maybe at some point you and her can connect and you can play your guitars and she can do the drums and I can do the audio. She's also an avocado and coffee farmer. She's also a mom. She was an ER doctor. She's a pediatrician in a big physician-run and owned practice in Southern California. And as if that wasn't enough, she's got a delightful personality. She's charismatic, and she has a podcast.
Wow. Sounds impressive.
Doesn't it? Welcome, Wendy. It's a joy to have you on the podcast.
Hi. Thanks, gentlemen. Nice to be here.
Wendy, you started your career in the big system, working in the emergency department. How long did you do that for?
Yeah, I worked in the pediatric emergency department at Rady Children's Hospital, which is under the umbrella of UC San Diego, for 10 years. And I learned a lot about a lot of things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, usually I tell people that want to go into ER medicine, you have to be done by the time you're 40 because you can't do it anymore after that. I'll give you a personal note. My wife was an ER physician for pediatrics since 96. She just left 4 months ago. After all, that's a long career, 25, 26 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now she works in our office. And you know when she quit, what they said? Why don't you stay an extra month? We don't have enough time to replace you. After 26 years, first shift, first patient, the first doctor working there. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not even a thank you.
So
thank you. Thanks. I mean, I got a lot out of it because I feel like I'm a really strong pediatrician now. I've seen so much.
Mm-hmm.
That was challenging. Yeah.
So, can you level set? Like, I think of La Jolla and San Diego as like, where rich people go to die. It's so expensive and so beautiful. Mm-hmm. But that's not the whole story, right? There's a lot of need out there too.
Yeah, our community is really diverse. One of the things I'm very proud about our physician-owned group is that we do accept Medi-Cal. And so savvy families will find us. But we also have a lot of members in our community who are low income and they live in tiny little bungalows in La Jolla. And I think a lot of them want what's best for their kids. So they come here for the school district. But yeah, there's a lot of need.
So when you were in the emergency room for the big health system, you felt some frustration with your ability to take care with your patients.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got a grant and did something about it. What was that all about?
I noticed while I was working there that because I was a pediatrician working in an ER, I didn't see those super high acuity trauma patients. I saw the lower acuity patients, and many of them were coming to the emergency department for primary care problems, eczema, hives, an ear infection, things that they should have taken to their medical home, but didn't because they didn't have transportation during the day, or they just didn't know how to get to a doctor. And so I realized that there was a huge population of kids out there who are not connected to, health maintenance, for health education. And so I also put that together with the fact that a lot of us pediatricians were getting burned out. And so I created this program called Health Stars, and I got a grant to start it. Initially from a private funder and then a catch grant, and then ultimately from Kohl's department store. And what we did was we brought pediatricians into communities. So I connected with low-income housing, apartment buildings, child care facilities for low income, the homeless shelters, and we brought pediatricians into the living rooms in these places and met with families, with parents and children. And we brought them a book each time. And we had a set curriculum. Each one was about, 20, 30 minutes of the pediatrician just chatting, giving information, and then doing a craft project with the families, because that gave them a chance to just start asking the pediatrician questions. And then we would give them a book and kind of demonstrate how to read to your children. And we actually did collect data on that and found that families were reading much, much more to their children after we left. And we also, as pediatricians, it really improved our burnout because we didn't have to write down what we were doing. That was lovely. And we really felt like we got to connect with our families. So that program's still ongoing.
Oh, that's a phenomenal program. And you
Thanks.
so many problems that we're having, right? Um, I call it repetitive stress syndrome. So it's that clicking for measurements that mean nothing and have no value, but have to be documented. Like, you know what I feel like? I feel like a little rat and they give me sugar and I touch the button. And, and then I do that. And I think my brain is not too big, but it's a little bit bigger than the rat's brain. And that's exhausting to my brain. And the other one,
Yeah, I only spend a small percentage of my time every day doing what I was trained to do.
yeah. And the other problem is you see so much need and we're not adequately paid and we're not given the resources to help these families. You know what they need, but we can't give it to them.
Yeah, we do have a new program that is helping with that, and I can tell you about that. But I do want to jump back to that emergency department experience. It was really interesting that in California, hospitals cannot employ physicians. And so there's this divide. So we were, employed by UCSD, but the hospital employed all the rest of the staff and they controlled the budget. So the nursing staff controlled our budget. So I literally did not have a stool to sit on most of the time when I worked in the emergency department. I didn't have tongue depressors. The otoscopes never worked. And that was just exhausting. And it was a budget issue, drove me
It's
crazy.
regrettable, isn't it? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'll have you back and talk more about that. So you jumped to a physician-led, physician-owned mega group with I think about 100 pediatricians from
Yeah, we're almost like 160 now.
160 from San Diego all the way up to La Jolla.
From Riverside County and San Diego County.
Okay. And when we first talked, when I said that, you just lit up.
Yeah,
You
it's something to be really proud of. So, and it goes back, and our CEO, who is a physician, could tell you more about the history, but we started out as individual owned private practices who realized we weren't going to make it unless we banded together. And that's how this practice started. And we're really just a conglomeration, and realized that we want to be consistent across each office and profit share. If your office has a bad year, but another office across town is doing well, we share that pool of funds, and vice versa, going on and on over the years. It turns out to be, fair, equitable, and supportive of all the practices.
and you love going to work.
As much as a pediatrician possibly could, yes. I've got
Yeah.
it as good as it gets. It's a hard environment to work in, right?
Yes, but it is 300% better than you were in the health system.
Oh, so much better. And I feel like if I need something, someone cares and wants to make it better. And having that control and that hope makes all the difference.
Right. And I listened to your podcast. I'm going to call it the Black Sox podcast. I don't know if you remember which one it is. A mom that adopted some children, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a construction site across the street, and the kids were wheezing. And she came in, and the socks were black above the tennis shoes and white below the tennis shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about how to advocate for your patients and our profession. How does a pediatrician, what's a playbook?
Yeah, so I realized a long time ago that I can make an individual difference on a family, but there's a lot more impact when you go to that community level and advocate for a change. And it can be something really silly and tiny, like, I noticed that kids can't cross the street to get to this park because there's not a crosswalk. And so they don't go to the park, and you advocate to get a crosswalk. But yeah, in this particular case, this was tough. I don't know if we're going to ever solve this problem, but yeah, the school was adjacent to a huge construction project that was breaking up asphalt, and it was raining asphalt on this elementary school. And these kids were wheezing. And that mom was kind of powerless. So as a single human to do anything about it. But so advocacy is that level at which, it takes one person to get everybody else riled up and get everyone on board to have everyone call the construction company and complain or call their local legislator. The thing about legislators that's really powerful for us to participate in, and I know it's a little intimidating, they don't know anything about what we know about. It is kind of our imperative as professionals, as pediatricians, to tell them stuff because they don't know. So on any topic that you care about, you can call your local congressman, senator, whatever, and leave a message, and it will make it to them. But it's interesting because when you talk to the staff, they are 22-year-olds. These are not intimidating people, and they pass on the messages to their legislator.
So the first kind of anxiety
Mhm.
is to call a politician, right?
Right. So you can email them, which is even less intimidating, right?
But you just take that step. Nobody will
Mhm.
bite. Nobody's going to bite you.
Right. No one is going to bite you.
And then the second step is to show up at their office and talk to kids. Because I mean, at my age, at 20, I was a kid.
Yeah.
That want to change the world. And maybe they look up at you because they have a connection with their own pediatrician.
Absolutely. Or they're thinking about having their first baby. They're engaged.
So they will
what we have
engage
to say.
with you. Even though I'm not so young and I've got gray hairs, they will engage with me. And they will ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. And their questions are so simple. It's the things that we know off the top of our head. It's part of our daily life. But to share anecdotes is really powerful. And if you go in there with a story like I shared about the kids who are getting asphalt rained on them every day,
Yes.
that gets their attention, and that's something they can speak about.
Okay. And then did you get the mothers involved to call the local legislator after you visited?
In this instance, I really I just encouraged the mother to take action and checked back in with her. And I was just sort of her support. And sometimes that's all people need. I mean, she had the passion. She just needed the little bit of encouragement.
Awesome. We need to write a national playbook. What
Yeah.
a kid. Because if we don't stand up, if we don't, I call it getting off our whiny chairs. We're like 2-year-olds on the high chair, banging on the table, and no one's paying attention. We got to get off the whiny chair, walk over, and make our own food if we want to eat.
Well, the thing about us whining is that we're whining about something that other people don't know about. So if we just tell them about it. So for example, we have 2 refrigerators in my office for vaccines for different insurance companies. Like, really? If I run out of private Prevnar, I can't take the Prevnar out of the VFC refrigerator?
No, you can't.
No.
Like, let's fix that.
You can't.
Yeah. Well, you just put it back in.
No, because
We can't do it. But maybe nobody knows.
You're stealing from the state. That's what they look at it as. The lot numbers don't match into their inventory, into their system, to their computer. And, if somebody whistleblows on you, they're going to come and slap you on the wrist and fine you. So nobody's going to want to mess with that.
And they're not very nice.
They're not very nice. Back in the day, it used to be you could do that when it was a paper trail. And, I guess it was okay. But today with their computers, it just doesn't work. Even though your EHR can manage back and forth, the New York State registries cannot do that.
So Wendy, you're an avid farmer.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
And I haven't gotten any avocados yet, but I hear I'm going to get some roasted coffee soon.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to be my test audience. I'm also a master gardener, technically.
Really?
Yeah. I just finished my master gardening training. It's across the country. Every community has one. It's 6 months of training, and then you're required to volunteer as a gardener in your community. It's very organized, very social, very fun.
Well, it sounds like manual labor.
And where do George doesn't like manual labor?
Well, I manage the hotline. You can call with questions about your garden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That I can do.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't like shovels and digging holes.
Oh God, I hate to admit this, but I can tell you guys, I don't want to do any gardening with kids. Is that horrible?
No. No.
There are all these guys that do school gardens. I'm like, no, thank you. No, thanks.
Now you got me off track, but I have to tell you, there's a great guy that he fascinates me. I much admire. He's at UPenn, and he's the father of positive psychology. Okay. And I forgot his first name now, but Marty Seligman. And he's a cranky old man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the most endearing story that he tells, and he tells it to all his graduate students, is the day he realized he had to change as a human being. And he was out gardening with his 5-year-old daughter. And you know how 5-year-olds are, they like to splash water, throw rocks. And the thought of actually pruning the roses with dad is foreign to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And snapped. And he told his daughter, "What are you doing? We're out here gardening. We're not out here prancing and chasing butterflies." And she said, "Okay." And then like 15 minutes back came and said, "Daddy, are you calm now?" And he said, "Yes." Yes. "Can we have a minute to talk?"
A 5-year-old says this?
Yes, his daughter. And he said, "Sure. What do you want to talk about?" He said, "Remember for my birthday, I had to give up whining. And I've been trying really hard not to whine. Can you give up being grumpy?"
That's maybe why I like being a pediatrician. A little bit different perspective, huh?
And so Marty said, I got, yes, of course I can do that for you, honey. And he's written his book that he wrote after that is Flourish, because he's an avid gardener.
Mm-hmm.
And so he talks about what we need to do for our kids is strength-based. What are they great at? And support that, as opposed to keep labeling with you're deficient in this, you're deficient in that. And, because at the end of the day, you want them to flourish, not just to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when you brought up gardening, Marty just popped into my head. And that's a phenomenal story. So yeah, very great. So I'll get some coffee. Oh, I was going to ask you, are you like a fancy gardener, like in my neighborhood with a HOA, if you flush too many times the toilet, you'll get a notice. Okay. So everything is regulated. So I call it a fake garden, right? Everything is manicured. Then I have a friend who's a PhD in botany, and she has a natural garden. And it's the plants that are supposed to grow in this area of the country.
So native gardening.
Native, yeah. And then what they have it all around the pool. And what's happened is when they first moved into the house, we would get bitten by all these bugs. But now that she's got this native garden, it's so inviting to the birds.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to attract bees, as a matter of fact.
And they come in and there's hardly any bugs.
Yeah, that's sort of interesting because sometimes you need bugs. It's funny because I've learned that predators they sound like negative, but they're good bugs that eat the bad bugs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of reframing things.
So which kind of garden are you? Are you trying to make it like in my subdivision all pretty, or are you trying to make it natural?
I'm a productive, purposeful gardener. Everything in my garden has a use. So
like tomatoes and basil and
exactly.
And can you grow it year round in California?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say yes.
Oh, nice.
Grow anything, anytime.
Oh, nice.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It makes you feel successful.
I just want to go to Costco and buy my tomatoes, and I don't want to know where they come from.
Yeah. I gave some figs to one of my patients the other day, and they came back and they gave me a picture of this toast that they made with ricotta and my figs on top. So yeah, it's part of my practice now.
Yeah.
And I'm asking too many questions, but
Yes, you are.
when you say
Try to
gardening,
get back on track.
no, this is so fascinating. So when you say gardening, is it just when you're at the farm that you do the gardening, or do you have a community garden in La Jolla that you work at?
We could do a whole episode on my gardening habits.
Yeah, let's go on. Herb.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
I want to
No,
know.
I have a little bit of stuff at the apartment, but mostly it's at the farm. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right.
It's
So,
my release. It's my get away from work hobby. We all need hobbies that are
yeah.
not work. Mhm.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but George has got a bunch of guitars behind it.
I do see that.
Yep, that's a hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
in
We
two
need to use a
bands.
different part of our brain. Mhm.
I play in two bands, one on Tuesday tonight and one on Thursday nights. Classic rock and heavy metal.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I play drums, but I don't think anybody wants a middle-aged woman drummer.
Oh, yeah.
do.
Maybe someone
Like-
does.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to go to you have to go to a school.
Yep. Okay.
It's usually an
Oh,
adult program.
Okay. Some more questions. Where
I'm talking about my hobby.
No, I've been there when you play. It's beautiful.
It's good. You go to a school. If you go to a
And the two
school, what
ladies that
happens?
sing
Please stop talking.
are wonderful.
If you go to a school, people pay, and because they pay, they show up. When you do your own little band, I had a rough day at the office, Herb. I'm not coming tonight. Then there's no
good
drummer.
point.
You're done. It's closed. So better to pay. It's usually not a lot of money.
Yeah,
And,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And where do you play the drums? Because you said you live in an apartment.
Yeah, no, I torture my family. No one wants a drummer in the house. Yeah, I've got an electric kit in my apartment and an acoustic kit at my farm.
Oh well.
Yeah.
We need a pediatrician band.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It's hard to do by Zoom, it turns out. Let's talk about my podcast.
Oh, yes, let's do that. You got to control this guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
She phenomenal. Isn't she a phenomenal guest?
Yeah,
I
let's
am.
talk about what we're supposed to talk about. Forget about tomatoes.
So okay, so you do all these things, and then you decide you want to do a podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a nice creative outlet. I actually had written a book is what really happened. And I was standing at a private party at a bar, and I was standing next to the woman who I knew had 5 children. And I said to her, and I'd had a drink or two, and I said, "Hey, I wrote a book about kids." And I described it to her. I said, "Is that something you think a parent would like?" And she looked at me straight in the face and said, "No one reads books anymore. You should have a podcast." Then she said, "I have a podcast." And she immediately texted her producer. And now I have a podcast. So it was definitely a Forrest Gump moment. But it's been really great because it doesn't take as much preparation as writing a book. And I can pivot really quick and cover topics that are really timely. And I can answer parents' questions. And it's been wonderful too, because, families will have a complaint in clinic and we're talking about something. And I'll say, go listen to episode 12. It's going to explain way more than I can do right now. And then yesterday I had the pinnacle moment. This mom, last appointment of the day, which was great. She walks in and she starts telling me about her child's constipation. And then she stops and she says, "Actually, I listened to your podcast, and this week's episode about having poop accidents really spoke to me because I didn't realize that it was not normal for my 5-year-old to have poop accidents. And that's why we're really here." And she said, "I listened to the podcast. I know what I need to do, but I just wanted to go over the plan with you." And that's when I knew I had made it, right?
No, you did good because people want to hear. I mean, you can find this information, Google anything and you'll find it. Made by some corporation, by some academy or something. But when it comes, when their physician is speaking to them, it's different, even though it's constipation and boring. We discovered this in our office. We wanted to provide some anticipatory guidance. What shots are you going to get? What's going to happen at the 4-month visit? So we do that, and we send out a text message to them before their visit. The doctors would like you to watch this video. And it just blew my mind how people are actually listening to that. And then you can just talk and interact with the patient. You don't have to worry about their, 15, 20 bullets of bright futures that you got to get through because it's all on the podcast. And I ask them, and they usually say, "Yeah, doc, you've already explained everything in the video."
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah. And what we did is we put a twist on it. We have a younger physician and myself, I guess, senior physician. We get to talk about different diseases. He'll ask me, "Did you ever see measles?" And I'll say, "Sure, I did. That's why you should get the shot. It's not a good thing." Younger physician doesn't know.
So you talk on the podcast mostly about information that parents need. It's very common, and that takes a lot of time to explain to the examiner, right?
Yeah.
At least once a month I do something like that, a deep dive.
Okay. And what else do you talk about the podcast?
I answer the questions that parents I know are too embarrassed to ask. They're those doorknob questions. So you're done with the visit, you put your hand on the doorknob and they say, actually, I have one more thing I want to ask you. And it's something embarrassing, or it's the things that parents who are friends of mine send me because they don't want to ask their doctor, but they really want to know. So the show is called The Pediatrician Next Door, and that really is who I am. I am that friend that you trust who knows a little bit more than the average person. So those are the questions I ask
Wow. So
or
it's called
answer.
The Pediatrician Next Door. And where can people find you?
I'm on every podcast platform. Yeah.
Do you have a website or just a podcast?
I do, drwendihunter.com or
Okay.
the pediatrician next door podcast.com.
Okay. And so that'll get you to your website.
Yeah.
And you'll find it.
And I'm on Instagram as the pediatrician next door, and I do some fantastic reels.
Yes, you do. Absolutely, you do. Because I follow you, and you are very entertaining. But
Thank
what
you.
I love about you is, well, there's a lot of things I love about you.
Aw, I love you, Herb.
Is that you're a pediatrician. I'm all jealous you live in La Jolla and have a 60-acre farm. That's another.
Yeah, you should be.
But I struggle with this because when you're on the reels on Instagram, you're still a real professional. So
Yeah.
you're entertaining, you're down to earth, you're not using medical terms, but you're a professional.
Your mom.
You are a professional. I don't like it when people cross that line from professional to media personality to maybe influencer.
Yeah, you're not going to see me dance. I'm not going to do it.
I just cursing.
We're cursing as a doctor.
It's not proper. Cursing, dancing, acting silly.
No, it's okay to play in a band though, George.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? The truth of the matter is, I remember when I started playing, we started doing fundraisers for medical things for the pediatric department. And I was embarrassed to tell people, I play in a rock and roll band. I was embarrassed because I thought that was not professional to advertise. I could do what I want, my business, but I didn't think it was professional to advertise it on the office website. And then the patient heard about it and asked me, and then we started promoting it. And it's actually a cool thing now.
Yeah,
it is. And it's a good example for your young patients too, to say, yeah, I'm a well-rounded person. And oh, you practice, I practice every day too.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that. They're very well produced and they're so professional. And I really like that. Like my friends make fun of me because I will not drink in the community where I practice. I won't go to a bar, have a drink. And people are like, you're being silly. Everybody knows that you're an adult. There's nothing wrong to have a beer with your dinner. And it's like, you don't understand. My moms, right? The moms of my patients don't see me as a normal human being.
Yeah. In a 1/4-mile radius, I am famous around my office. You know what I did? Oh, this is the worst. So sometimes I take a scooter, one of those paid scooters to work because I live that close to my office. And I didn't wear a helmet one day. And I had all these kids yelling. They could see me because I'm next to the elementary school. Hey, Dr. Hunter, where's your helmet? So yes, we do have to be careful because we are an example.
At least they didn't take videos of it and put it on Instagram and tag you on them.
Yeah, I have a fluorescent gold helmet now, by the way. Can't miss it.
All right. Well, I think I've asked you enough questions, but what have I not asked you that you think is important for pediatricians and your audience to know?
Oh, this career is long. That's what I want, like residents to know and students and high school students who think they want to be a doctor. This is not a race. I think all of us did this. We kind of raced through undergrad, medical school, residency, and like there was always the next step. And then you get to the end and you're in practice and you're like, oh, this is okay. Now what? And you've got this like hurried mentality. Just slow down. Not a race. Take your time. I took a year off after high school and I took 5 years just working before I went to medical school. And I'm glad I did that because this career is a marathon.
Yeah.
Yes. You
We're
gotta
still
take-
running. We're still running.
Yeah, I'm still running. You're still running.
Yeah.
You gotta take time to smell the roses and
Yeah.
your
Literally.
coffee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, guys.
You're a phenomenal human potato, as I call people.
Yeah, thanks. Well, let me know what I can help you with, anytime.
All right. Well,
All right.
send avocados, coffee. Invite me-
Listen to the Pediatrician Next Door podcast. Share it with your patients.
We will definitely do that.
Thanks.
All right. Well, have a wonderful time out in California.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Stay cool. Bye.
Bye bye.
Stop.
Thank you for listening. This has been a production of the Pediatric Lounge. On the show notes, you will find links to our co host and other important notes, as well as a timetable of the topics discussed today. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a great review, as it helps us greatly. In the meantime, we will see you next week. The Pediatric Lounge. The conversations are not intended as medical advice, and the opinions expressed are solely those of the host and the guest.